Hello and welcome to another episode of Coffee with SamPaul. We're at my favourite city cafe, Cafe 228, owned by Jamie Kay. Love this place, always like to come when I can. And I've got a very special guest with me today, Opal. How you doing, Opal?
Yeah, I'm really good, thanks. And yourself
what
today?
What a great name. I'm great. Don't mind me, I've had a lot of coffee today.
I can see. No, it's all good.
So I'm going to try today.
Yep.
And what have you had today?
Actually, peppermint tea. I don't really drink a lot of coffee.
Yep.
I don't do milk either.
Cool.
Just, personal choices. So peppermint tea it is.
No worries. That sounds cool. I just like to ask because I get some very interesting choices from my guests. So I always like to sort of bring it to people's attention what we're drinking. And
yeah. No, it's important because then you figure out a lot about someone by the milk they drink and
Oat milk I normally have, but this is
See?
I think I got full cream unintentionally for this one, but I normally go oat milk.
Yeah.
So we were talking a little bit off camera about what you do, but just give us a bit of an overview of what it is you do and how you sort of came to this point of working for yourself, doing what you do, because it's a very interesting story.
Okay, well, how do I put it? As nicely as possible. Okay, so I've had a fairly good life. There's been ups and downs and all the rest of it, but after I separated from my ex-husband, went through a bit of emotional turmoil, which actually led me to addiction. First I became addicted to alcohol, followed by methamphetamines.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I watched a very good show about that.
Yeah, there's a
Painkiller?
lot of... Yeah, I've just watched that one as well. Yes, yep.
Sorry.
No, you're right. But it's definitely, it's a huge issue, it's a huge problem. And, I can't say that I'm fantastic, obviously, because I went through it myself, but at the same point in time, I went through it, I realised I had a problem and I wanted to do something about it. So how the birth of my business came about was through this transition, through my addiction. So through addiction, you go through recovery. It takes a long different time. It's hard work, a lot of work on yourself.
I can imagine,
managing relationships and all that sort of stuff. As well as trying to get healthy again, because you lose so much of yourself and your emotions, not just physically, but emotionally and mentally and spiritually as well. So from there, I really still didn't know what I wanted to do or where I was going to go, and you're still trying to put your life back together.
Yeah.
And, I've got kids, and life is hectic. But I was like, no, I really wanted to use my experience to be able to help other people. The lack of despair and help that I had going through that transition to be able to get clean was really harrowing. And I know that everyone experiences that because it is such a lonely place. It's an isolating place. And I wanted to be able to give back to people that were actually experiencing that because I know what it felt like. So, from there, that's when I started my business last year. It was probably a little bit before April. I actually aligned with a beautiful not-for-profit organisation called the Australian Anti-Ice Campaign.
Oh, I've heard of that.
Yeah, so they're based up in Queensland. I'm now the South Australian manager. But
okay.
Right.
Very cool.
So basically it was, I wanted to use my experience to be able to, help. And that's how I started. It was still probably a couple months before I got into my own business myself.
Yeah.
But from there, I started my brand, which is Reascend. I do peer support and mentoring, as well as psychosocial recovery and coaching. I moved into the NDIS space to be able to help with extra areas and stuff there, which that links to Nicole, and that's how that all came about. And then, also through that, I guess, the last few years have just really been getting myself right and healthy, but also trying to learn as much as I actually physically possibly could. So to be able to bring, different modalities into my, workspace that I work for, obviously. So I've got breath work, a whole heap of things like that, meditation, ice baths, all those sorts of things, to be able to help us emotionally regulate, which is the biggest problem when you're coming out of addiction, to be able to help with it. So it's kind of what I do.
One of my biggest takeaways from what you just said then, and I'm noticing a bit of a trend with some of my guests as well, which is a really cool thing to see, is how you want to give back, to those people that have gone through what you've gone through. And I feel like almost, I don't know if you've got any kind of formal qualifications behind that, but I feel like that learned experience is showing to be much more valuable in a lot of cases, because I guess because you've gone through it, you kind of know a bit better firsthand. If you just go and learn about those kind of things, it's different to actually going through it yourself.
Absolutely. I mean, realistically, straight out of high school and then went and did a Bachelor of Oral Health, and I was a dental hygienist and therapist, and then husband and kids and all that sort of stuff, and life changes and transitions. But no, I didn't have any formal qualifications when it comes to addiction or all those sorts of things. Primarily experience.
Yeah.
But then after that, I went and did my S04 in mental health, drug and alcohol.
Fantastic.
I've actually started my diploma in drug and health.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And I'm also studying at uni as well, part-time, just doing my med science as well, to be able to have the understanding and to be able to look at more of the addiction, what research we can actually do to be able to help, and obviously there's a lot to be done, but just to be able to help with the whole addiction itself.
One thing I find both surprising but also reassuring is how many people seem to have gone through some kind of addiction type situation in their lives. But what I find reassuring about that is also how many people have come out of it the other side.
Absolutely.
I can't even tell you how many guests I've had that have come from some sort of addiction background and are absolutely thriving now. And through different mediums like yourself with your business, I've had one awesome girl, she's a musician now, and she speaks really openly about her struggles and overcoming that kind of addiction through music, which for me is like, oh my God.
But it's the translation as well. Like her artwork that she produces is going to be so much more heartfelt and from the heart that touches so many more people.
Exactly. But it is sort of very sad to see that there is so many people falling into that kind of that situation of becoming addicted to alcohol and drugs and things like that. I think it's kind of quite indicative, I guess, of the despair people feel in society, you know, and the way things are going. Like, I know we talked just before we started, like, about there's a shift, more people are kind of making a shift, pulling back, not trying not to overwork and just work what they need, but also giving time for themselves. I think that's a really, really positive thing.
Yeah, I think, like we said before, COVID was probably a prime example of that and pushed us forward a fair bit.
Yeah, it did.
It did.
Yeah, I took a lot of positives out of that.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's the way that we look at things in terms of, whether or not you take that experience and turn it into something good, or whether you sit there still in the fear and you're held by it and you're, surrounded by it and you can't move through it.
100%. In fact, that fear that you mentioned, I learned a saying recently which it just resonated so hard with me, and that was on the other side of fear is opportunity.
Yes.
Or growth, you know. And it's so true. Like, I come from a background of being a young kid that was that shy kid that didn't really, like, in comfort of good friends, I was probably a little bit more out there, but generally, like, I was a guy that if I ever went to like a pub or a club with friends, that'd be the ones that would go and approach girls to chat them up or whatever, like you do when you're like 18, 19 years old, whereas I would just sit in the background, like having my Coke or whatever, and I'd never really want to, approach people and not just in the dating sense, but in any sense, and then I forced myself out of that fear when I came back to Adelaide onto the stage and rap. And that was like a turning point for me, and the opportunities that have come as a result of me stepping out of that fear, stepping out of that comfort zone is incredible. And I'm seeing that more and more with guests like yourself, like talking about that kind of aspect of it. And it's such a, I don't know, beautiful, maybe not the right word, but I feel it is a really beautiful thing to see.
Beautiful does encompass it, absolutely. I think the thing is once you start to grow, you move through that fear and the fear disappears so that you have more to be able to give, to be able to expand even more, and that's what's beautiful. That's the catalyst. And I mean, when we're held in fear, there's not much that we want to do. But when we're not held in fear, we're limitless, absolute limitless beings in which we're capable of anything.
Yeah, I love that word, and I love the movie that they made about. I mean, it was a kind of slash drug type related film. They took a pill, they opened their mind up to be limitless, but the concept of being limitless and what you can achieve is just such an amazing thing. And I think it's amazing what we can as humans do when we really put our mind to it. And I'm not talking about all the technology and stuff that we've invented and created and stuff. I mean just jet life in general. I mean, even going as simple as like talking about childbirth. I mean, how amazing is that? I learned very quickly when my son's mum was pregnant with my son, how much of a miracle it is even just to get pregnant, let alone then going that 9 or 10 months to birth. Like, there's so many things that could go wrong, and yet nature finds its way, and we as humans find a way. It's incredible. And seeing that manifested in like what you do and what others like yourself do It's just incredible and amazing.
Well, the simple fact is that a human body has over 1 trillion cells. There are over 300 different types of cells within the body. And you know, your veins and blood vessels and everything can wrap around the earth. They're actually that long and infinite. Like when you stretch them out, dead set. So if you talk about infinite, we are infinite. We're infinite, literally. As well as we need to manifest it to be able to live it. Yeah.
And something else that you just drew my attention to, completely off topic, but just kind of relates to what's just happening right now, is how much there is to learn. Like, you just reminded me of saying my grandma once said to me, she said, the more I learn, the more I realise I don't know.
Yes.
And it's just like, wow. And like just now, you've just told me something, like, and I'm pretty sure in the short space of my day today, I've learned so many things already, and that's just today. It's incredible. The ability to learn and keep educating and learning, and that is so important.
There's a saying, I don't remember who it's by, but is you know, if we're not learning and growing, we're actually dying and we're dead.
100%. So, I would definitely agree with that. In fact, I've told people that in the past that if I'm not learning at least one thing a day, then I am already dead. Like, I may as well be already dead, because like, what's the point of life if you're not learning? Like, I think it's such a beautiful thing to continue learning and expanding your knowledge. And I actually come from a hip hop background, like musically. That's before all this, I was a hip hop artist. And one of the most amazing things I ever learned is that, like, so hip hop was always talked about as the 4 elements. You know, they had the dancing, the DJing, the music, and the graffiti, the art. But KRS-One, who is like known in the industry as the teacher in hip hop, I think he self-proclaimed himself that. But honestly, the knowledge he shares, I think he's earned it. But he said there's a 5th element of hip hop. He said any culture needs education, needs knowledge, needs the transfer of that knowledge. Because if you're not transferring the knowledge, the culture dies. And I think, you know, in hip hop, that's one of the reasons why it stood the test of time. It wasn't just a fad like a lot of people said when it first started. It's continued on because of that knowledge transferred to the younger generation and so on. And I think that's a great analogy just for life in general. You know, if you're not transferring your knowledge onto the younger generation, and sometimes the other way around as well. I mean, we can't discount someone because they're younger than us for having that knowledge. You know,
it's that exchange of energy.
Exactly. That comes up so much lately. I don't know what I've done to manifest that into my life, but energy transfer has become such a big part of my life without even really realising or intending.
It was always there, it's just that you didn't realise it. And then at the same point in time, you would have, the people that would have sucked it from you without you realising, you no longer consider them or spend that time with them. Like, you surround yourself by the people that are able to give it back and forth.
I did learn that lesson a hard way maybe about 2 years ago. I'd met this young guy through some workshops I've been doing, and as I often do, I say, you know, if you ever need help, reach out, you know. And generally that's fine, but this particular person, I found every time I was around him, I just felt drained because he was taking but wasn't giving back. And it was only as I've kind of progressed through my journey of sort of, you know, self-love and development and growth that I realised what was happening. And it's crazy, like it really is an interesting thing, you know. And I love the kind of concept of frequencies. You know,
we are made of frequency. You know, every different cell and every organ in our body has a different frequency. And I've been told that we vibrate at different frequencies depending on our attitude and what we put out there and stuff. And I've noticed that. I used to be the kind of person that if I had a friend or an acquaintance or whatever, and they for whatever reason wanted to leave my life, I would fight tooth and nail to get them back or keep them in my in my life. But now I realise that if they're going, I should just let them go, because for one, it's a waste of energy trying to bring someone back that doesn't want to be there. But also, it's clear that we're on a different frequency now. Like maybe I'm going on this frequency and they're on this frequency, depending on whatever's going on. And it's just, I don't know. I find it very liberating when you start to come to terms with these things. And as the saying goes, you know, if you can't change it, let it go. You know what I mean? Like, you know, change what you can, accept what you can't. And you know, don't try to change things that can't be changed, because you're just fighting a losing battle in a way, you know, and it's a waste of energy, a waste of you know, yourself. I think at the end of the day, nothing is forever. And you know, there is everything in life. It's a lesson we're either being taught or we're being schooled. So
100%.
Just got to go with it and accept it for what it is, and not hold that emotion. So
tell me a little bit about, because I have come into contact with others that do breath work and things like that, and it seems to be a growing thing. So I'm assuming, based on that alone, that it's obviously something that's very helpful to people.
Definitely.
Can you kind of talk me through a little bit about how like a breathwork session would work?
Yeah, I mean, most people go, what do I need breath for? Like, I breathe every day and I'm alive, you know?
Yeah.
Which, you know, it's a fair point. But
Yeah.
at the same point in time, what they don't realise is that, you know, the way in which, you know, humans are built, I guess, essentially, is when we actually breathe in and out of our nose, we actually
I can edit that out.
activate. That's all right. I don't care. We actually activate our parasympathetic nervous system. Now, with a lot of anxiety, depression, emotional issues, and things like that, what we're actually using is we're using our sympathetic nervous system, and that actually affects us physiologically, which is why when you have depression or, you know, anxiety and things, you actually have a physical body feeling that comes along with it as well. So by learning how to breathe consciously, what we can actually do is activate that parasympathetic nervous system, which actually regulates and, you know, calms and soothes that whole body. But it also actually activates the good chemicals in our brain. So I'm talking about serotonin, DMT, because it naturally is DMT, all those sorts of things. No, but
I'm aware
seriously.
of DMT.
I don't know what you're talking about, but no. But no, seriously, like that's an active, you know, thing that's actually in our brains, is actually produced when our body is actually healthy anyway. So by breathing and being consciously breathing and working through this, you can actually activate that yourself to be able to flood your system so that you're healthier, you're happier. You can, you know, so it's for loss of weight, it's for, you know, even before you get into an ice bath, so that you can actually handle and, you know, actually walk through the whole ice bath and, you know, be in there. There's so many benefits for it. As well as the fact what actually happens is emotions actually get stuck in our chakras and things. So by actually being able to regulate that breath and move it around, you can actually move that energy of that stuck emotion so that you can expel it out of the body. And,
Okay. It's interesting you say that, and I guess I kind of asked, even though on some level I kind of understood already, but I obviously wanted to share it because I think it's a really good thing for people to know that maybe don't already know. But I met this woman maybe a few months ago now. She's an artist, and the first time we talked, I tend to talk a lot, and I sometimes can talk a bit fast. And she told me to take a breath, and I was kind of thinking, oh, what the hell is this hokey pokey kind of, you know? And but I did, and my talking slowed down, and I kind of became a bit more coherent to her, and like it was crazy, and that was just like a few little breaths, just right then and there. It's amazing. Like I feel like we often in society kind of search for these really complex, really difficult things to fix our problems, when really quite often, as the saying goes, you know, like sometimes the simplest solutions are actually...
I think you find that most of the solutions actually come from within us.
Yeah,
and I know that sounds
that's
corny,
exactly what I'm
not just talking about the fact that you have to heal yourself emotionally, all those sorts of things, but our body is such, as, you know, we talked before about, you know, the different, you know, things in our body, and, you know, just how much of a miracle it is to be able to fall pregnant, or actually to be sitting here in itself. Like, we actually have the ability to be able to heal ourselves. You know, you get sick, you get a temperature. The temperature is there to be able to kill, you know, the bacteria and all the rest of it. Like, our body has a defense system and mechanism in itself, but we've lost the ability to be able to utilize the things that we can actually, you know, do for free, like breath work, and there's other modalities as well, to be able to help heal ourselves. It's as simple as that. No, that's crazy. That's really crazy. Like, something else I read, and I don't know if maybe you know anything about this yourself, but I read somewhere they had like a chart and had all these different fruit and veggies that we eat, and they were cut in half. And the shape inside apparently correlates with parts of our body. So there's one that looks like a heart inside, apparently very good for heart health and things like that, and so on and so forth. And as someone who works in fruit and veg, I've seen with my own eyes, it's not just a Photoshop photo, it's legitimately like they do look like body parts, or organs. I have heard of it multiple times. I don't remember in what context, or, you know, where it originally came from, but it does make sense. I mean, for myself, I'm a plant-based vegan, and I've cut out, you know, sugar, I cut out meat, I cut out animal products and dairy, and my health has dramatically changed. So there is something to eating that natural plant-based, and in terms of, you know, being able to cut it, it probably does correspond, absolutely. Oh, right. Very cool, very cool. What about ice baths? Because I've heard I've heard in the past, before I even knew what an ice bath was, I heard that cold showers were a good way to start the day. And because I'm a bit of a chicken, I've never actually done an ice bath. I've been encouraged to try it, and I will.
eventually. But occasionally what I do is I'll set a timer on my phone for 1 minute, and I'll put the full cold on, I'll jump in, and I won't get out until that time, at least when that timer goes off. And I have to say, it feels freaking amazing.
Look, it's a point of contention, but it's something I agree with, but I disagree with, so just hear me out for a second.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so yes, hot and cold therapy is really good for us. My story is, I was doing hot and cold therapy, ice baths as well. I actually had a subarachnoid brain hemorrhage back in March, and that was actually brought on by being in an ice bath.
Oh, wow.
So it does have implications. In saying that, they're great modalities in which actually do help. Like, I remember when I used to jump out of the ice baths and I would feel so vitalised. It actually, forces your whole entire body to be able to regulate. It releases, by activating the vagus nerve at the end of our neck. It actually gets us to reset and release all the toxins and stuff like that. There's so many health benefits for it. But in saying that, a lot of people don't actually realise there are risks. There's risks with anything you take, just same as breath work. There's some people that cannot do breath work because of the implications. I think a little bit needs to be done in the regulation of ice baths, especially when you've got so many that,
Just do it.
So it needs to be checked with your health professional beforehand. But yes, highly recommend them. But they need to be in the right setting. And the facilitator needs to be qualified.
Would you say, and I'm not at any stretch trying to compare this to say like microdosing. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but would you say, because I've been told that, like for example with magic mushrooms, which I know a lot of people would say, oh no, don't do that, it's dangerous, and obviously there are risks involved, but it all comes down to quite often the setting that you're in, the environment you're in, and also I've been told since growing up and kind of becoming a bit more knowledgeable in the area that we're probably just about out of time, but can you just remind me again the name of your business?
Yeah, so it's Reascend.
Sorry?
Reascend, Reascend, Yep. And the name is Opal Adamson. Otherwise on Facebook is Opal Eglite. But yeah, that's me.
Cool. And I'll get some links from you if you've got them. We can put them in the description of the video when it goes live. And let people know how they reach you. And but thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
It's been a pleasure, and it's been a real eye-opener, a real educational experience, which is one of the best things about this show. I get to talk to people outside of my area of expertise and learn and incorporate into my life. And of course, thanks to Jamie too for the great coffee and chai. Oh, in our case, tea and chai.
Tea,
but it's always a pleasure to come here and enjoy the atmosphere and especially with a great guest. So
thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
No problem at all. Thank you.